Hello. Today I'd like to talk about someone who actually had an impact on my life. I may not have known him personally, but I don't think it's a stretch to admit that he did. Throughout small town America, he donated large sums of money to allow the opportunity for little children and adults to read. He provided access to those who did not have means to the classics, whether it's Homer or Mark Twain. And of course, I'm talking about the Carnegie libraries. My hometown actually had one, uh, until they actually built a new one across the street. Today, it's now part of the city hall. Although it no longer dispenses wisdom, at least it's still standing today, and it's a tribute to Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie developed a love of reading when Colonel James Anderson of Allegheny City opened up his library of 400 volumes to working boys. This provided Carnegie access to the classics. At this time, he didn't have the means to actually purchase books himself, so this actually provided him that opportunity to read. And I believe this might have influenced him in donating money to build free libraries. Uh, Carnegie once remarked that he owed his rise in life to a game of checkers. The game of checkers is actually a rather popular game among the Scottish at this time, and once they were in Pittsburgh, his father actually enjoyed playing the game in a local alehouse. And here he met David Brooks, who was a manager of a Pittsburgh railroad office. And one day, his father actually said that he didn't know what to do with his son, and that's when Brooks replied that, send Andrew over to me and I will make him a messenger boy. And the next day, Andrew Carnegie was hired on as a messenger boy, and he had a salary of $3 a week. And while doing this job, he learned how to operate a telegraph, and he actually impressed his bosses, and he steadily uh, received promotions. And he eventually made enough money where he made some wise investments, and through these investments, he made a nice, tidy profit. And with that, he invested his money in in the steel industry, which made him a millionaire. Uh, on a side note, Carnegie also made some money as a writer. In fact, he once remarked that it was his dream to become a writer. And once he retired, he spent most of his days playing golf and actually writing. And he made a modest income in his writings. Um, some of his writings were actually travel logs, and his friends enjoyed them so much that he decided to write a book. And in one of these books, he actually wrote about uh, a trip that he arranged for his mother and his entourage, where they went to the United Kingdom, and they traveled from Bristol to Inverness, and they would travel 32 miles per day, and once in a while they would actually stop, maybe a day or two, to actually rest and take in the sights. Uh, he did write some articles for the North American Review, and these are some of the articles that I'm going to be discussing. In fact, one of his first articles uh, was, which was his really one of his most famous articles, uh, was an article called Wealth. And this article was actually republished several times, periodically in the journal. Uh, well, of course, there's that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. For Andrew Carnegie, with great wealth comes great responsibility. And to him, uh, once he became a millionaire, he wrote about how to actually administer wealth. Uh, in his article on wealth, Carnegie asked what was the best way of administering wealth, especially upon death of the wealthy person. Uh, he would uh, talk about how he felt that it was a waste to leave all of the inheritance to into the inheritors, because what good will this money do? I mean, will they do anything good with it, or will it just be a waste? Uh, to him, Carnegie argued that most of the wealth should be actually granted to the community or to the government, and it would be for the benefit of the community. The inheritors would actually receive enough money to live off of, or at least to get by, so they can actually establish themselves. Carnegie believed that the community at large actually played a role in the making of a person wealthy. Um, the community would actually buy, the wealthy person's products, or he might not have been wealthy at the time, but they would buy his products or his services, and eventually he would actually gain wealth. And the community actually provided the infrastructure that allowed him to transport his goods or to bring in raw materials so he can actually produce these goods. However, Carnegie does not take into account that there is risk involved. This person actually took on that risk to actually start the enterprise, and of course that person actually had to also be a hard worker in order to produce this kind of wealth. It's just not the community itself. I mean, yes, the community actually buys products or services, but the initial risk is upon the actual investor or uh, enterprise. Uh, but regardless, uh, Carnegie believed that the wealthy should pay their fair share to the community. And although he didn't believe in an income tax, he did support an estate tax or a death tax. He believed that uh, if a wealthy man died wealthy, he was a disgrace. And therefore, the question would be how best to dispense this wealth. And he felt that although a death tax was not desirable, uh, that it's a possibility. Although I believe that the chief way of dispensing wealth is to actually dispense it before death. Uh, and this is where charitable giving comes in. That was his answer. The wealthy man should dispense his wealth through charitable means before actually dying. And I believe this is why he, created a fund that actually granted money to build free public libraries. I mean, the fund no longer really exists today, but uh, the Carnegie Foundation is still, or corporation is still involved in libraries. Uh, he also established a foundation or an institute that promoted peace, and he probably also donated to universities. Uh, and of course, the Carnegie Corporation continues in charitable giving to this day. He was really an interesting man. Uh, don't know if I actually agree uh, with his ideas on taxation, but he was very interesting. He was a self-made man, and he, basically walked the walk and talked the talk when it came to dispensing of wealth. Thank you.